What's up? What's up? What's up, Jax?
How's it going, everybody? How's it going? I think this is actually my first Instagram live.
Ever?
I think ever.
Never in your life.
Yeah, I haven't used it at all.
What?
The gods of Instagram are like really upset because I haven't utilized this technology.
Oh man.
So.
Well, I'm glad I popped your cherry.
You did, yeah.
Well, it looks like we're getting some people in here.
That was a great.
I always wait till we get 100 and then we start talking. What's up, everyone? We're gonna be talking about relationships. I got Jax here. I'm gonna pull some cards. And I picked the deck, so I was like, Jax, go pick a deck. I'll pick a deck. That's what you and I do. Have you noticed that?
We do every time. We customize.
Like we customize, we pick a deck. You know, it's funny. I got 6 of Wands right away. I think we're gonna find some good achievement.
And I got Scorpio. I transform.
Oh. It's like kind of like Scorpio in the midheaven or something, you know?
Yeah.
6 of Wands. It's going to be blowing everyone's mind. We're almost to 100. Almost to 100.
Almost there, you guys.
Hope you guys are doing
sharing
good.
and liking.
You listened to the podcast that I was just on? That was a good podcast. I got pretty deep. Got pretty deep on that one. We're so close. We're right there. So close. So close.
We're at 70 people.
Will Nichols, what's up, brother? So close. I won't go into, if it's not 100, then we just won't do it.
That's right. I'll just cry myself to sleep.
Oh, you know what's so funny is yesterday everybody took my live so serious. I was just like, wasn't upset, wasn't depressed, wasn't sad, just letting out my Scorpio.
Yeah.
You gotta let out your Scorpio. Podcast was bomb. Alright, we're at close to 100.
Hey, Jess Taylor joined High Vibe last night. What was the
Awesome.
right decision? Welcome to the club.
Oh yeah, so we'll be in the chat room. So anyway, why don't we just start the talk? What started this whole idea for us talking about relationships? I think we were talking about dating apps.
Yeah, we were talking about dating apps, we were talking about our personal life, and then it just sort of went off into the number one issue that is really prevalent. It's just a common point of view, is that essentially there's 2 kinds of relationships. There's a good one, if it lasts forever, and then there's a bad one if it ends. The problem with that is the highest number of relationship types are the quote-unquote bad ones because they end. And the problem with that is that the goal in those relationships is to be together forever, and that if that's not reached, then there's a problem, and it was awful, and this person, you're broken up, and it's just like the worst thing in the world. But the reality is, if we actually incentivized and invested in just enjoying the love as it was happening, we would actually have relationships that end much more peacefully. And of course, there's obvious exceptions. There's extremely ridiculous arguments, and when you're not compatible with someone, but it's
it's like crazy.
Yeah, and as a Libra, I mean, for me, like this last year, like I really stepped into arguments in a new way that I hadn't ever before in relationships, and it was almost like, there was a time to, to stand up for your truth and to just start, announcing what it is you want from the world, and to no longer take any of those passive-aggressive dynamics, which Libra can magnetize sometimes to them, and then, of course, mirroring that behavior. So it's just a really important time to start saying, I want to actually enjoy love as it is when it's happening, and not constantly obsess over the future. Not constantly check in and say, we're going to be together forever, right? Like, we're going to always be together, right? You're like checking in. It's a clear sign of a lack of trust there. If you happen to say it because you're motivated to, cool. But if you're constantly checking in to verify, you can't verify that. You can't prove mathematically that you'll be together forever. And that's just something that once you cope with that, I mean, you're able to actually enjoy love.
I agree. I think that the future projection thing, because a lot of it is imagination, right?
Yeah.
Like you start putting together things, especially in the spiritual community, being, intuitive or psychic or anything, you can really start to believe, because you've seen your spiritual, work before, it almost becomes like you believe sometimes your own, not delusions, but I think that you can kind of
Delusions.
piece things together without, fully knowing somebody yet. It's usually at the beginning too, It's like, oh, I don't really know how they are, how they'll be yet, and then you just start like putting out that whole vision, and then you're like, uh-oh, it didn't go that way, and then you freak out and you think that there's something wrong. I mean, usually it's like, no, maybe you just have to step back and accept the now and the love that's there.
Yeah, I think what was wrong was not accepting the real vision, but creating your own. Like, I think that's what was wrong. You manufacture this idyllic world, and it's like, it's like I've had people explain to me and like tell me like, oh, we're twin flames, like because of what happened in our past lives. Like you and I are twin flames, and I'm like, I didn't sign up for that. Like, like, and it's weird because there's multiple of them. So apparently, I've got like 9 twin flames running around. So that the universe was like, yeah, I think we accidentally assigned more souls to this guy. I don't know what the deal is with that, but
I think because I get the same thing. I was like, in a past life, was I like somebody who maybe was a figure that a lot of people looked up to, and maybe it's just more of like, oh, I remember you were like talking at a town hall or something in the village a lot.
Right.
I don't know, like, you know what I mean? And then people can associate kind of that kind of thing. Or I think that not all twin flame, because I don't want to like kill all the twin flamers out there. I believe that there are twin flames out there in a way, but I think a lot of it is like the attachment of identity.
Yeah, I think twin flame is like the goalpost and not the pre-existing condition. Like, it's not that's just my view on it. My view is essentially that it's really important when you address the twin flame energy that, if you're feeling that, then you're feeling that, and I believe that. However, it's important to understand the history of how soulmates came into popularity, and then how that transformed into a much more casual thing. Like, oh, soulmates, after the popularity started to die down and a lot of psychics were incorrect, they're like, oh, well, actually a soulmate can be like your friends and your family and stuff like that. And it's like they watered it down, and then they're like, but twin flames, once you find them, that's when you've got it. And then what has happened in the community since then, it's like, well, now there's false twins. So once they were incorrect that person was your twin, it's like, well, this is awfully fucking convenient, because it sounds to me like you're just literally going to keep assigning whatever, and then it's like the newest one that's going to be all the rage here soon will be the divine union. That's a term that is now starting to cannibalize
the divine union.
There you go, because once your twin flameness is evolved, that's when you're in the divine union. And once again,
then it's going to be the new universal union, because of the new universe that was made, and that was the old universe that was divine, but this is the new divine union.
Due to collapsing timeline.
But this brings up the X thing a lot, because I've been noticing with lots of clients and people I know around everywhere that it's like the leaving of relationships, which a lot of people have done, I think, in 2019, as they've been prepared for 2020, is that it's like there's so much weird energy attached to the X still, or the X even doing weird things, or showing up in weird ways, or people are having trouble really, like, I think they're using the past projections of how they felt about their X and creating the future projection of what's there, but everybody's unique, every relationship is different. I think it's okay to reflect back and go, yeah, I like this about that relationship, or I like that, but I think that right now it's almost creating this like hard line no into the future when you're actually basing it off something that didn't work. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because the funny thing is, if you allow yourself to be surprised, like I had like 3 exes reach out recently, and it wasn't even for a romantic reason. It was just like for a friendship, and it was actually a really positive experience. And if I had superimposed my past experience over the top of right here and now, and like not really listened to them, but just sort of thought at them, it would have been awful. I would have still been in that same framework. I'm open to people changing, but it's just like, waiting for the past to fix itself and then come declare it to you sometimes comes in the form of just a single organic interaction that it just happens, and it's beautiful and it's nice and it's simple. Like, that's the way the universe does it a lot of the time.
Yeah, and then it's like, because we were talking about dating apps or just all that stuff, it's like interesting reading everybody's profile stuff. It's like everybody then has basically created the biggest filtration system to where I don't even know if anything can ever come through.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, no to this, no to that. And it's like, when you start putting out no's, like, because Libra, sure, it's got a justice ability, it's got a little bit of judgment, but the ultimate, I think, healthy part of Libra is being fair and being willing to hear all sides and evidential, right? Like, let me see if the evidence actually is actually something that maybe I would be okay with doing in my life. But I think when it's this like automatic like no to anything, then you're just like taking out, like on ads, if you run an ad on Facebook or Instagram, it's automatically be like, what city and state or what country do you want to run the ad? What age do you want to run that in? And so you're only going to target these people with that ad. It's like your filtration system is so extreme now that basically, you know, your capacity for what you want, which I think, you know, it's not a bad thing. Some people might just would be like, I'm only going to have this, you know. But I think that a lot of it is like some of the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my whole life is the reason of a no. In my life. Some of the stuff I see on there, it'll be like, if you... Well, because I have cats. So it'll be like, if you have a cat, no. Because I have a dog. Like, don't they get along? You know what I'm talking about? Or, I don't know, it'd be like crazy. Hiking, oh yeah, if you don't go hiking.
Now for me, that's what I would have on mine. Because like I really need hiking in my life, so they have to kind of keep up.
So that's not yours.
But besides that one example, everything else is ridiculous.
That's so funny. You know what's so funny? It's so opposite. Mine, whenever I've had my dating app stuff, I'm always like, I am open. I'm just looking for somebody who's open and non-judgmental and open to seeing wherever the flow of the connection in the universe is. Because I don't, you know, like...
It makes too much sense.
Like, you know what I mean? And I think that another part that really has been weird lately is it's been so many extreme relationship situations that have gone on that everybody is kind of in such a weird, like, stall mode. Like, people are, like, afraid to really make the big leap. Whether that's a leap of trying a relationship, whether that's the leap of even going on a date for some people, whether that's the leap of leaving the one that is just, like, so terrible and it's got so much evidence, like, the universe is throwing it, like, it gets more intense in your face to where it starts to get so personal. It's like, it's crowding me in almost like, it's like, ah! You know, it's like, ah! So it can go any other way, and then afraid to make, these leaps are not huge. They're actually very just tiny steps forward into beauty. It's like literally like, how long are you going to keep staying in the sewer when you don't have to? Like, you walk out the sewer and literally be out of the sewer. Like, it's that fast.
Yeah, seriously.
It reminds me of the Eight of Swords a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that going on.
Yeah, anyone that still is in a relationship that they know that they shouldn't be in, like, deep down they know it and they're trying to find reasons for it, like, now's the time. Like, you still have time. Like, get out of there. Like, get out of there because otherwise it feels like there's this really intense vacuum energy that's just going to suck you in and just keep you... For some excuse. It'll be financial, it'll be for these other reasons, and they're not honorable reasons. They're not reasons that you can be proud of when you like look back at your story. So it's definitely a really good time to step out if you want to.
Yes, because what is coming up here, I think this new moon this weekend is intense with the Uranus element and opposition. Actually, a lot. Jax and I have been together all day, and we were in an Uber. And we were in the backseat of the Uber, and we were talking about Uranus, and he was talking about his clients and looking at Uranus and Neptune, how important he thought they were, and I was too. And then we talked about Uranus for like 10 minutes, and then like after the Uber and after we got back here, I was like, do you realize that Uber driver did not say one word to us the whole time? Probably thought we were fucking lunatics the whole time.
Yeah, I was like, right after I finished my whole spiel, my whole like little speech about the way that Uranus is acting like a daily energy right now, and then I realized it was like, oh, wait a minute, this guy doesn't know what the fuck we're talking about.
I know.
He's probably like, I'm assuming they're astronomers, maybe.
I know.
Like,
yeah,
what
I
do
know.
they mean a daily energy? But yeah, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy, but I love it because, you know, there's a lot of times recently where I'm just like going off on these rants to people who know nothing about it instead of like holding my tongue like I used to. I used to be in a place where I was like, oh, if they ask, like maybe I'll sort of touch on it a little bit. Now I'm just like, hey, random cashier, like, yeah, I do astrology and, you know, I do tarot and like these are some of the things that I focus on the most. And it's actually surprisingly non-judgmental. The assumption is always like that when the silence comes, it's like judgment time, like you're going to get judged. A lot of people are actually open-minded to it, especially because even people who philosophically aren't open-minded to it are just feeling the universe right now. The universe is dead serious. It's giving access to people who didn't pay for access, if you will. You know, like people
100.
who haven't gone on the quest. Like it's just happening to people. There's awakenings everywhere, and it feels like this next year will be this slow building tsunami wave, and then all of a sudden there's just going to be millions more people that are suddenly just like awake, you know, essentially, or remembering, or you know, reawakened, or whatever you want to call it. It's just it's something else.
There was an article today that came out about Uranus that it actually, on the daily, closes and reopens its magnetic field. Like, so, you know, we have the poles and we have our magnetic field, like, stays sustainable, but once in a while on Earth, it's kind of more irregular. Like, it'll kind of reset itself, kind of open and close for a moment. Here, or on Uranus, it's doing it daily, which is so the in and out of Uranus. Like, you know, it made it even more, and it actually creates, like, a wind between it, too. Like, it's kind of intense, which is so ironic, because the original understanding of Uranus rules the air and rules the skies and the winds. And so, a lot of people, you know, go, oh, it's the rainy season because of that with the water bear. It's like, no, like there's the understanding that Uranus was the understanding of intellectual air sign. It's an air sign, you know, and it's the water bear understanding is the helping out by disconnecting, by pouring water to one person and moving on to the next, and not having some person go, I need more. You know what I mean? It's like, well, now you're taking up the water for the person that's in front of the person that I just poured water for. And I think it's like Uranus is a hard lesson because it's like always teaching you, if you're moving forward, I will grant you the water you need and everything you need and everything will come together. But if you keep saying, I don't want to move forward and I want to keep having more, I don't think Uranus hates greed because his sun is Kronos, Saturn, who eats his own babies.
Yeah.
So I don't like to use that analogy, but I think in relationships, there's people out there right now that are like, I don't want to move from this hard position, whether I went through a breakup or whether I'm still in a bad relationship or whatever. I don't want to move forward. It's like, I like to use hard analogies. They're actually not even mine. They're actually astrologies and, you know, mythology, which is, it's like you're sitting there just chomping on your own babies, like in control. Like, you know, that's the whole idea. And Uranus, the father of Saturn, is Kronos, is just like, oh God.
Yeah, and your life force, like, each and every day, like, isn't that as sacred as an infant child? Like, you know, it's like, what are you going to create that day? Like, what are you gonna make each and every day? It's like, absolutely. Time is, you know, both non-real and at the same time the most valuable resource in existence. Like, you know, it simultaneously is and isn't. And that's just like, you know, like we're going through this place right now where a lot of people actually I've been hearing, they've been saying like, oh, I feel so bad, you know, I wasted time in this relationship. I'm like, you know, if you really take the risk of just getting to know yourself and what you really want from life, that doesn't have to be a waste of time. Like, that can just be a series of examples. And not even in, like, just the philosophical, cerebral, like, oh, there are lessons here, like, this, you know, he was a bad communicator, so I clearly needed to learn, I need to be a good communicator. There's a feeling to it of just, like, you know what I actually want? I want to be able to just, like, do what I really desire. You know, I want to be able to know that this other person is able to receive me, and they're also able to give back. You know, they're able to do so in a fair and balanced way. And of course, you know, I always end it with that Libra style. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, to finish on where I was at about this new moon this weekend, with the opposition to Uranus, I mean, it really is like, you either move forward now, and whatever the direction that is in your life, because a moon in Scorpio, with a new moon, with the sun, you know, it can get really stuck in, you know, a kind of, you know, emotional, overwhelmed, obsessive, can't let go. And Uranus is that third party, or foreign entity that is kind of like, hold on a second. It's like a hand that comes in and finally pulls you out a little bit. Yeah. And goes, there's a better place here. It's in Taurus. Like there's actually sensuality that you could be having. So, you know, if you're attached to such an emotional state of old relationship stuff or obsessed over a relationship and it's actually not physically showing up for you, like this is where Uranus goes, like, it'll like do it kind of harshly too. Like you'll see, especially since we're in a social media world, that person that you're obsessed with or that ex that you can't let go of will show up in a picture this weekend will be up with another person and they'll be making out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, ah! And they'll be like, no! Just to get you out finally and be like, fuck this. Like, you're gonna, you know, like, we need to pull you out of here. This is Uranus. Like, if we're watching Instagram Live, like, you know, that's how it works.
Yeah. And Uranus and Taurus is, like, constantly saying, like, okay, if you're stressed, like, do less. Because the reason you're stressed is because you have that violin class and then that yoga class and this other thing. It's like, hey, if you're improving yourself as a person, one thing that helps you improve is when you take time for yourself and, like, don't kill yourself by, you know, constantly doing all these other things. Like, subscribe to that thing that's really valuable to you and then, like, unsubscribe from all the things that are just eating you.
Yes.
Like,
it's like being in a science lab. Like, it should be fun. It should be, like, a good like thing in life, but when you get so overwhelmed into it and you become too obsessed, or like, it reminds me of Einstein on his chalkboard. Like, sure, he came out with some amazing things that changed our understanding of life, reality, gravity, so forth, but gosh, how many hours did that guy freak out and sit there like and lose himself, or how many things did he miss out on too?
That was one of his skills, was that he could sit in this one chair in particular and he would sit there for like 5 to 10 hours just thinking.
Yeah. Well, you know, he said in one of his memoirs before he died that he was actually part of the Manhattan Project and the atom bomb. And that he, that was his biggest regret that he did. So sometimes in life, the things that you are spinning your wheels on might not be the best for not only humanity, but even for yourself and other people. And so when you start like obsessing about your own needs so much and your own emotions so deep, without kind of maybe really looking at the quality or, you know, where all that's at. And I think he was on the Manhattan Project because they'd started it before they even got in the war. The Manhattan Project was started before the war. So it technically, actually, well, we're talking here, and the Manhattan, I think the year was, let's see what it was, because it might have been Uranus and Taurus like we were seeing now. So it's almost like everybody's going through their own Manhattan Project. Oh, 1939. That was when Uranus went into Gemini. So, it's almost like all the things that Uranus and Taurus brought up. You have to remember that World War II is very Uranus, Taurus to Gemini, which we're going to see in 7 years.
It's going to be so intense.
And it's going to be very intense. And there's this whole thing about what's coming up here in 2026 and 27 with the alignments, because in 2025 is when Neptune will be into Aries, Pluto will be in Aquarius. It will be quantum crazy stuff coming in life. And Uranus in Gemini is fucking crazy. I mean, it really is. It is in the environment going into freak out, like it. I mean, we saw atom bombs going off. Boom. But that was also Pluto in Leo, which is exactly going to be an opposite place of where Pluto was in Aquarius, not Leo. So this will be like another kind of atom bomb situation, just in a whole other way. So it's like you got to really start to think about the only thing long-term in relationship-wise you should think about is yourself and the journey that you're aiming yourself on, and if people in your life would fit into that same spiritual space and where you're aiming your spiritual mission or your life. Like, that's, I think, the best gauge. Like, everything else, like, you know, all filtered to that, which is open. You know, it's like, well, okay, maybe they drink, but they're not like a drunk or alcoholic. They like to have a glass of wine here. They like to do this. That's fine, but they're not like out pounding, getting so drunk at the bar every night that I have to pick them up and, you know, slap them in the face like with water to get up in the morning. You know what I mean? Like, you got to start looking at things like that. When you put this whole end all be all like no to everything, it's like everybody's a human being and everybody has their own things and everybody is, but it's like, does it really align just with the love, the spirituality, and a positive path forward. I think future is about thinking about a positive path forward. And you don't know what that looks like. All you know is that it's positive and it feels good and it feels in alignment with spirit. And that spirit guides the way anyway. You know? I don't know. I think we should pull some cards, though.
I think so, too. I think that'd be awesome.
I'm not able to read the chat because it's so far away. And it won't let me go on my own chat
time.
Because I'm already on my own live.
Well, selfish time, Jess, is like the aim, because you're not really being selfish. Like, the best version of you that does the most for this world will be the version of you that served themselves and has an overflowing cup, period. And it's not just a cool tagline, it's just the truth. Like, if you serve yourself, if you focus on yourself, and if you're basically on this quest to just be who you really are, it will make more impact on the world than faking all these different things and trying to be this person. Because for me, I'm a quadruple Libra, so the entire first portion of my life, the first 20 years, was literally all faking to make other people happy. And it was only from deciding, like, enough is enough. Like, I'm just going to be who I am. And ironically, you get more acceptance, more happiness, more freedom, and it still is something that, you know, I've been working on over the past few years. It's like, it's a really important time right now to serve yourself, because that just means you get to know yourself. Like, if you know who you really are, then you'll know what you want. And that's a difficult thing to do, because then you have to look yourself in the mirror and look yourself sort of like in a black mirror as well.
So what should be the question we pull for?
I don't know.
I'm almost feeling like maybe what for relationships this weekend is about, maybe?
I dig it. Relationships this weekend. Let's do it. Mercury mind.
Mm-hmm.
What's yours?
Two of Pentacles upright.
So for me, I interpret the Mercury mind portion as, actually, don't be in your head this upcoming weekend. Don't overanalyze things. Draw from your mind what you're really hearing and then speak it. Like, basically, like, instead of overanalyzing something or trying to argue it back and forth in your head, when you say, you know, I'm extremely unhappy because this boundary keeps getting crossed, instead of trying to justify from their point of view maybe why they're doing it or some excuse for it, just, like, tell them, like, hey, this boundary keeps getting crossed and that's a problem.
Yeah, and Mercury rules environments, and there's something about this Two of Pentacles that always reminds me of the environment from land to sea, and the balance of, like, how to, like, go between both, because there's always a boat in the background, and there's always this land, and there's always this, like, you know, there's two different worlds. Like, there's the world of, like, I'm on land, or no, I'm out at sea. But there's a balance that's always needing to be found within this Two of Pentacles of, like, you know, how we're going to be kind of going into two different worlds and environments this weekend, and that's okay to not trip out about it, to actually be more of the curiosity of the mind, which is more exciting than the doubter and the overthinker. Like, being curious and understanding both sides, like understanding two sides of relationships and values that might be way different. Like, you might even be in two different literal worlds, land and sea. Like, it might be like, you know, a captain of a ship going out with a girl who runs a garden. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, okay, how does this work? You know what I mean? But instead of using this mind to be like, well, that won't work, you have to go, and I think the other cards are going to show us more, but I think that there is something to say about using the curiosity to see the different worlds, the different points of view, and that there's a little bit of an in and out, too. Like, maybe it's got to be a little bit fair and balanced as far as, like, if you're going to go into somebody's world, like, they should also be able to come into yours, or at least set that up, you know, or have a conversation about it, but also not be in such a doubtful place the second it comes to mind. You know, because it's like, sometimes you can be like, oh wait, you have a dog and I have a cat. How is that going to work? Or you have kids, I don't have kids. How is that going to work? Right? It starts becoming like, you know, like, we're in two different places. You know, it's like, what? We're always going to be in two different places. Like, I just took a poop today and you didn't. You know what I mean? Like, come on. Like, you know, so it's like, there's ways for these things to all kind of work out if you let the communication be from a positive place of looking at both sides instead of, and being fair, too, I think. That's important.
Yeah, I think so, too.
Since Mercury is in Scorpio that are ready to retrograde, I think it's important to have those conversations.
It's funny, you couldn't see the comments, but there was like 3 people that were like, communication's key, communication's everything. That's true.
And I think a lot of people are holding back what they really want to say to people. A lot of people. Yeah. It's Mercury in Scorpio. it's the Scorpio sun now. There's a little bit of shyness. You know, people think Mercury and Scorpio is bold. No, Mercury and Scorpio is bold once it builds up the courage of the inner emotions to say it. Mercury and Scorpio people tend to hold it in for a while, and then when they let it out, holy shit. So there's a lot of stuff that's been kind of percolating that people have been wanting to say.
Yeah, and it also feels like right now that all of the focus on Mercury is perception. Like it's very trying to look as deep into the ether as possible.
Well, what's really crazy, just to get a little deep astrology-wise, is where Mercury's going to retrograde on Halloween is literally a degree away from where Saturn in 2015, in August of 2015, Saturn stopped in Scorpio at 28 degrees Scorpio, and then it came direct coming into end August into September, and it was squared Jupiter and Venus retrograde in Leo. That was at 28 degrees, and that's 28 degrees is also where in Leo the solar eclipse was of 2017, the big one that went through America. And here's Mercury retrograde at 27 and a little bit, so it's pretty much there. It's within a degree. With Mercury, it's such a small, tiny little sand planet. Like it's tiny. It's so tiny, but at 1 degree makes sense. There's something about us clearing up love, connection issues since 2015 and that bridge, or patterns that we've been going through since August, September of 2015. That might freak you out, but you've been in a pattern since then that you're going to start to undo.
Yeah, now's the time. Now's the time to break away with it, because the universe it's like, look, you can kind of like start marching along with us, like with the flow, or you can get out of it, because essentially it's like there's not going to be so much mystery right now. It's like going to be very clear, but also it's like the hard time that the universe is putting you through is not one to hurt you. It's not one for the sake of negativity or difficulty. It's literally a challenge because it cares. Like it's like, look, I'm calling you out on this particular thing, and I'm sending 3 people at a time for each and everything that you're having trouble with acknowledging, but I'm doing it so that you'll do something about it. Finally, like you can finally free yourself, because no one is coming to give you a key. Like no one's going to save you. You have to save yourself.
Yeah, and you have to speak up for yourself.
Yeah.
Because I think Mercury and Scorpio is asking for something, right? Like asking somebody on a date, or asking them something that you're feeling that's off, or being willing to accept the invitation for something too. Be willing to. Mercury and Scorpio is like the RSVP. Like whether it's you sending the invite or you RSVPing to something, and whether you say no or yes, like that's just what it is. You know what I mean? Like but I think that a lot of people have a bunch of invites right now that never gave like a full maybe no or yes. Like kind of like, and in relationships, I feel that maybe partners, there's like a little bit of like are we inviting ourselves to a new space, or are we not? Are we going to continue on the same pattern or not, you know?
Yeah.
It's be interesting. What else do we got here card-wise?
Yeah, let's take a look.
Should we ask a different question with that?
Yeah, I think, I don't know.
It's your turn.
I don't know. I think for the question, let's just say, how can we be challenged right now? Like, how can we intentionally choose to challenge ourselves right now? Let's do something like that, especially in context to relationships. I have 10th house, the world. So, keeping the journey of your 10th house journey, keeping the journey of your final destiny as what you're married to, I believe will make it so that you're actually open to be in a real relationship. I think that if you basically take the 10th house and you start painting it with the colors of this person you love, to such a degree where you're codependent and you build that and you act like that codependency is responsibility, then that's a big problem. So I would say the challenge right now is literally saying, what do you envision for your future, regardless of what happens with this person? And you're like, no, I don't even want to think about that. If I think about that, then that means there's like a possibility. And if there's a possibility, then, you know, I've trusted, like all this different stuff is coming up right now. So 10th house is kind of giving us like a cold answer. It's like, hey, just focus on yourself for a second. Focus on your destiny.
Well, also it is like focusing on like the public element of like, you know, recognition, right? It's like if you're only with someone for recognition, or you're like, and recognition could be not just like for fame, but it could just be like, oh God, you know, I broke up, so maybe I'll go back with the ex or something because I look better to my family, or I look better to, you know, my kids, or, you know what I mean? Like all these kind of things. Like if it's just for like some sort of, you know, pleasing the public eye in some sort of way, whether that's your family or anybody. Yeah. And also too, like using people, not only like, as you, like Jax said, kind of as like it could be kind of like oh yeah, like I'm going to rely on you for this. It's like, no, it's like more even deeper of just, you're relying on somebody to create your destiny. Like your destiny is defined because you're in my life. Like it's like, no, that is not good at all.
And that's the worst part is if it works. Because if it works, if you succeed at that, the power dynamic will shift in a way that you did not expect and at a speed you did not expect. Like if you're sort of hitching your post to this other person and basically saying like, oh, because we're together and we're in love, like this destiny that we have together will work. And it's like if they go along with it and they just fade into that, that's not necessarily like a good thing. Unless the two of you happen to be called to the exact same like niche thing that like no one else is doing, the odds are in most cases it's just it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, let's see what I'm going to pull for this challenge. And you know what? I feel like there's something with that 10th house that's going to be weird.
Yeah.
The Ace of Swords. But I think a lot of this has to go with this whole, like, I'm ditching everything for this exciting destiny and kind of like not, it's almost like, because the challenge, Ace of Swords is a weird one as a challenge. Because it almost is kind of like this is my fresh start in my mind and in how it looks. And again, we got the mind as the beginning card. There's something about creating this, fuck whatever's going on, I know better, I am in the right place to do this, and this is just what it fucking is, and I'm going to make radical changes to my environment, radical changes. I feel more empowered because of this. Because I think that, again, 10th house and even Ace of Swords. Ace of Swords is an empowerment of the mind when it finally has cleared all of its shit up mentally. So it's like, I've got my power back in my head. I am clear again. But it's like, if you're basing it off like, oh, this is some destined thing that I am basing an underground, like, mental projection of things in a way that is like, this is my end all be all right away. And getting that confidence that's actually kind of not fully there. It's almost like, I feel like Ace of Swords challenge could almost create the idea, the story, the message that this thing is so fucking amazing without looking at all the details first, or just jumping the gun too quick, like a little bit, like, oh, like, you know, like.
And like what you were saying with 10th house recognition, I mean, 10th house and the strong recognition energy, Ace of Swords makes total sense in context to that. It's like, you know, essentially with Ace of Swords, it's like, if I tell anyone this idea, are they going to think that I'm, like, insane? You know, like, if I tell this person in this relationship, like, hey, just so you know, this thing happened, and I just realized I had this dream about this ex that I had or something like that. Like, are you going to be able to honestly communicate that? And how are people going to perceive you? How will that person in the relationship perceive you? Yeah. What about the friends that she, you know...
Yeah, don't put up a false front, really.
Yeah.
Because 10th house loves to project, the corporation's doing great. You know what I mean? Like, the stock's really good. We need to do that in order to get more stock. You know what I mean? Or more investors. Like, that's how 10th house is. So, maybe this Ace of Swords, I think that Jax tapped down into it the most, is that creating the illusion in the mind and just not being able to be real. And also, like, because I don't want to take away, I don't know why my guides are saying this, I don't want this to take away from amazing relationship aspects happening this weekend.
Right.
So don't be like, oh God, if it feels destined or anything, I'm fucked. No, I think that this is just about not building your confidence so high and also starting to take away from the way that you express yourself in a way and creating kind of a false new identity or a false new trajectory that hasn't been fully thought out yet. You're overconfident. about it in a way.
Yeah.
Without, and it's not negative. It's just like saying like, start from the base and keep it there and slowly move it up instead of rocket launching the idea of it to, we're going to Vegas and getting married this weekend. Like,
yeah, and I would say for those of you in good relationships who are doing really well right now, it just means you've probably been paying attention the last 6 months. Like, you've probably been listening to yourself, and you've probably made some major action. Especially, remember the Grand Cross on like September 20th, 10 p.m., like around that time, somewhere in there. That Grand Cross, like for almost every person I worked with, literally was like, oh, we just had this big fight that we've never had before, ever. And then it ended up being a fight that healed them rather than a fight that tore them apart. So it's like, just because of the cycles closing and the end of these things and all the talk that we're doing about, you know, relationships that don't work, which is just a very serious problem in the world. It's like the relationships that do work, like, just keep paying attention, like, just keep being yourself. You're clearly communicating what it is you want to communicate, especially if you guys are prospering right now. If you guys are in this energy spectrum right now, still doing really well and you're cheerful and everything's growing and positive, that means you're doing a lot of work. So
yeah, I don't think a big decision has to be made. The 10th house of decisions, Ace of Sword feels like it is just like confident of a new direction. Like, I feel like there's this, and even single people, like, let this be amazing, but this isn't like this end all be all in now, defining everything. There's a lot more to figure out. It's going to take time, and the challenge is the patience, and that there are things that you might not be able to see yet that need to come together to really be more confident about the understandings of the environment, the mental elements, all that stuff that need to be there, and the conversations that fully haven't even really begun yet to even think about something that would be for a big decision.
yeah.
So I think kind of letting go of the seriousness about it and just enjoying the amazing part of it, and it's okay that you don't have to know so extreme what it all is.
Yeah. And I would say for everyone that's single, because a lot of people commented that they were single, it's like, now's a really good opportunity to get to know yourself. Because if you're sad because you're single, like if that's the causation of your sadness, you're like, oh, because I don't have another person, I am like just really depressed right now. It's an important time to just get to know why that is. Because it doesn't come from a place of necessity. You know, love itself, of course, is a necessity, but the relationship and being in one isn't the thing that will cure that depression or that sadness. Like, you'll have to eventually, at some point, maybe before or after the next relationship, really take some time and say, you know what, like, here's the things about myself that's making it really scary to be single. Being single should be, you know, ideally, the place in which you're completely full, completely happy, like you have everything you need in life, and then you get to share that with someone. If you're in a place where single equals sadness, then it means that, you know, it's time to give more to yourself. It's time to figure out how you can do that. It's time to start setting expectations and kind of marrying your quest, or marrying who you really are.
I love that. I almost feel like the next card we should pull is like some sort of like positive outcome, or what's the positive outcome?
That's my specialty. That's my specialty.
You know, because
Let's see.
this is just a challenge. Don't base everything off challenge right away. You know what I mean? Some people, you know, some people get a little like, oh God, the challenge.
That's fine. Challenges are great. Okay, Cancer, I feel. Okay, so as positive as possible. So with Cancer, the energy that I'm getting from this is that now's the time to start revisiting the impossible. Like, all those times that you look back to your childhood and you start to think of all the feelings you had about things, the feelings you had about your parents, the feelings you had about your friends, a reevaluation of the inner child, a reevaluation of some of those relationships that have, life goes by. Sometimes life gets a little bit in the way and you haven't talked to, one of your parents for a long time, or you haven't spoken to one of your childhood friends, and there's no particular reason why. The inner child is coming up a ton in the collective right now in really bizarre ways, because it seems as if like the marriage between the ancient wisdom and the inner child, like the sort of simple wisdom of the inner child, it's like the two of them are showing up together at every party. You know, like at every time you're thinking deeply about this thing that you might want to change, or about something that's been going on with you recently, it's as if the inner child and the ancient wise master are both there. So I would say that Cancer's energy is just trying to say, let yourself feel right now. Let yourself explore those impossible things like reconnecting with that person, or, you know, talking to someone and seeing if maybe their point of view has changed or if yours has.
Yeah, I think getting 10th house as the challenge and then Cancer as the positive outcome is like, just focus on the feelings of it all. Yeah. Just focus on the richness. Focus on the home of it. Focus on the root feeling of this amazing connection if it shows up, or if it's reuniting with your partner that, you know, maybe... You know, it's been too much about the destination instead of just the feeling and just about having it right now. Yeah. Because let's see what I'm going to get here. That fell out, but I don't feel it. I felt this, which I got the High Priestess reversed. Which I think it's like, you don't need to be this crazy intuitive master right now. All you have to do is feel. You don't need to go clarify this weekend through outside source of spiritual knowledge that this thing is. Again, I think so much of this is about the beginning of the conversation before the reading, which is like how twin flames are. There's just all this stuff about definition, and so much of if it's fated and if it's supposed to be, that if you're in that realm this whole weekend of the mind, which is the first card that Jax pulled, and to see this is kind of like the last card here, the High Priestess reversed, is like, you don't need to know. All you need to know is the feelings. All you need to know is that you're going to the curiosity of feeling and seeing, and that you don't have to this weekend make a choice. That the universe is like gonna pull you in the direction that it's gonna go, and it's gonna do it in a way only through feeling. It's like, this is not about building the tracks this weekend. This is about just sitting in the train and having a party. But, like, you don't have to be going to the destination of wherever you feel it's supposed to go.
Yeah, you don't have to think of your life as, you know, being like an elected official right now. When it comes to your spirit quest or your spirit journey or your spiritual abilities, like, allow yourself to remember, like, the original point was that you were flowing with them because it was a magical experience. Yeah. It was your connection with God or the universe or however you want to put it. Like, that's what it was originally. It was like, it was something that was just there. And what happens over time is there's a danger sometimes to getting used to spirituality without reconnecting to the feeling of it, because the philosophies of spirituality, of course, start to gravitate towards dogma. And it's like, what did we talk about earlier? It's like, you know, right now it's so hilarious and ironic because there's a lot of people, and it's not necessarily just light workers, you know, there's a lot of different groups, but it's like all these people who are spiritual who just, you know, backtalked like religion to the ground, and then they ended up making their own. They ended up doing the exact same thing with all the knowledge we have now, with the technology now, and they essentially, like, there's a lot of cult building. Not like it's my opinion. There's just literally cults now that have formed. And it's like they literally took all the lessons that the Age of Pisces was very clear on, and it was trying to say, like, look, here's the point of this feeling. Here's the point of feeling who you really are and feeling the spirit. And it's like, you know, all these religions came up. We all looked at that, said, how ridiculous, all those rules and silly clothes you have to wear and regulations and all these things. And it's like, well, you know, if you look around the spiritual community, you're going to find a whole lot of that now. And it's like, it's self-created. It's homemade. It's like home-brewed. Like, it's wild to see sometimes.
It is, because I think that it's, again, defining spirituality.
Yeah.
Which, in relationships right now, I feel that there's this overwhelming pressure on people to define what a relationship is.
Yeah.
Instead of feeling a person and feeling a connection. Because without even feeling it, you can't define it yet. You can't really know the trajectory of where it's going to go yet and be obsessed with that. So then in the spiritual community, it's like, well, once I've defined myself this way through what I wear, whatever rules it is, like whatever food I eat or whatever this or whatever that, that's in religion.
Yeah.
That there is something about us not even connecting with the openness that spirituality truly is, or the openness of what a beautiful connection between two people are, and the curiosity of whatever that is, that it doesn't have to be defined, but it has to be felt fully. Like when you fall in love, you don't have this whole kind of like master's thesis of what it's
right.
gonna be right away at all. Like there's not even a book yet. Like there's not even a class about this yet. There's not even a, and again, I don't think that this is where you become a teacher to a teacher or you know, two students even at this moment. This is just you're two people having a beautiful emotional connection, and you know, you don't need to also kind of keep continuing looking for crazy signs at every goalpost. Like the signs are there, so just go into the game. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and enjoy it instead of just at every second, every moment. And if you're holding yourself back, there's something about holding yourself for something that you think is better from that you've already had. I don't know why I keep getting this one. Like, I've already had this person, so I'm going to hold out for them to change. Like, High Priestess Reverse is kind of like, because it's a delusional sign of like, oh my gosh, yes, like some psychic told me that I'll get back, or somebody, and you can create a lot of your own signs and your own synchronicities or your own things, but you got to look at the physical realm instead of the spiritual realm right now. Of like, are you feeling? Are you having physical touch, sensuality, emotions, and connections, or are they all in your own weird virtual reality machine and they're not happening? Which is why I think some people, when they're single, they're actually feeling alone. Usually, Jax said, you need to pay attention to whatever that is. So, instantly the spiritual community goes, oh, you're not in love with yourself. No, that might not be it at all. It could just be that, you know, you're afraid to enter into a relationship. You're afraid to take a RSVP for an invite that you've had. You're afraid to offer an invite to somebody. You're afraid it could be all these things, but in your virtual reality machine, you're like, no, or you're trying to in your head, but you're actually not physically, just doing the reality and just experiencing the uniqueness and letting the universe come in and then take over for you once you've kind of set it out there and see whatever it is and just like let it just kind of show, you know? Reminds me of high school relationships. It's not until like you connect at a party or at the high school or whatever, and you just keep doing it, and then finally after it just feels so good, that's when you kind of go, well, I mean, I feel this, and do you feel this too? Yeah, okay, like, should we do this? Let's do this. But there's like a lost in the love, a lost in the energy. That's why the Fool card is the first card. I think it's like, that's the beautiful part.
I think so too, and it feels like, you know, I think those are interconnected. Like that open-mindedness spiritually has everything to do with the relationship, because sometimes the relationship dynamics change, and it's not just because like one person forces it on the other, but because like both of you agree that things can happen differently. For me, like recently, it seems disconnected, but like I had this really crazy spiritual experience with, you know, to me what felt like meeting God. And that changed the way I look at spirituality itself. And without an open mind, that would be a really difficult thing to do, because then I would have to like look at it pridefully and say like, oh, I guess I was wrong before. And it's like, no, I have an open mind. Like something else was revealed, basically. I won't get into the whole story because that'd be like 2 hours long. But essentially, it was like I had to humble myself in a new way. And in relationships, that happens all the time. When you meet the God of basically the potential connection of the two of you, and you feel basically that force of creation itself, it's like, you know, sometimes you have to like, you know, you have to kind of like kneel down and like take a moment and just say like, I need to reevaluate if maybe I was wrong before, or more importantly, what feels true now. It happens a lot.
It happens a lot, and I like how you bring up that kneeling before God, like not all relationships, but ones that we all take seriously or we all feel love for, like, there's always moments, and some of them last way longer than others, and then some of them are just serving a purpose for a major understanding in your heart that you don't want to see anymore, but you see it so you can actually know what to go do. And then once you're able to accept that, the world becomes your oyster after that point, because there's so much that we learn through these connections, some of them are not meant to be, unfortunately. I mean, it just is. I probably wouldn't be sitting here, Jax wouldn't be sitting here, you know?
Yeah.
Like, we didn't follow what didn't feel right.
That's very true.
You know what I mean? Like, we wouldn't be sitting here right now doing this for you. Yeah. Think about life in those kind of terms. Like, where would you really be if you had chosen differently at some point?
Massachusetts. Yeah.
Yeah. Right now, I would probably be here, but you wouldn't be here, and I probably wouldn't be live talking about relationships.
Right.
And I probably wouldn't be in this room, and the music studio didn't get redone until a couple weeks ago, so this wouldn't be here, like, you know, or maybe, who knows? I don't know. I might be at home in bed right now in that other reality. But I think that, you know, and I want to just say this. My guides want to say this. It's like, people are not experiencing the realities anymore. They're living in the alternate realities of what they want or what they think or what they see. And so I think that it's important. And then and this is where emotions, because we did pull the Cancer card, this is not easy for people because they get too emotionally caught up if it doesn't work out. At least you're in the game. Plays don't work in sports. Like, there's just football plays that don't work. You go up to bat, you strike out sometimes. Fucking, it's life, you know? Like, there's something that, you know, you don't win every race. But that doesn't mean you don't stop from progressing, and that's what teaches you to go forward. Instead of pulling yourself completely out of the game. Completely out. Because there's this whole notion of people saying, like, I need to make myself better. Or, like, you know, because I've been separated and then I went through my divorce, and that was in January that we moved out. So, like, I'm going on 11 months in a week. Almost a year. And so when people will ask me about dating, like, are you sure you've gotten over all that yet? Have you taken enough time for yourself? It's like, well, what's the fucking written law on that one?
Right.
Is there some fucking crazy book that tells me that after 6 months or after 2 weeks or after 3 months, 2 days and 2 hours and 22 seconds and 22 milliseconds, that's the point in where you're all right? Like,
yeah. The made-up love rules are really weird.
And like, usually if somebody's saying that they're not ready, it's because they haven't let go of that other person. And if you haven't let go of that other person and you're not allowing yourself to move forward into that beautiful energy, and that person's not coming, like, you are literally letting them use your energy to support them to keep growing whatever they want in their life. You're battering that cord. You're giving them so much juice that you're giving them an extra amount of energy to go manifest the love they want in their life, because your love is creating more love that they have in themselves to go create the love that they want. And the more you keep holding on, you're giving them that love. That's the dark part of Venus and Scorpio.
Yeah. You're still spending your energy. It's just not being spent on something positive. It's being spent on an investment you can't cash out from.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. That's some deep truth right there. Mind blown. And then the way you said it, too, with the investment that you can't cash out on. Ooh.
Back to the 10
That's
times.
literally just like every morning waking up, putting all of the money that you make every day, whatever that might be, and putting it in an envelope and putting it in the mail to your ex's address.
Yeah, that's exactly what
it's and thinking, well, he did love me, or she did love me, and guess what? They'll give it back to me, or I'll get the best return of my life from this.
They won't.
Yeah, right. As he or her on their way to go fucking get a big old hotel room and spend the weekend with flowers and fucking rocking sex.
Yeah.
That money is going to a lot of other things. Damn.
That's very true. They'll spend it.
That's the scary part of being a Scorpio, is if you don't learn to pull out, you're giving the energy of your love to someone else that's not returning back, and it's actually helping them manifest faster their own happiness and love and making you feel farther away and stripped. So we have 11 seconds. So follow at Jax Atlantis. It's right here on my Facebook or my Instagram. Love you all. Talk to you later.
Bye, guys.